Hey folks, welcome back to Only Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about Green Rider by Kristen, which is the first book in the Green Rider series. That's honestly, I came across this series maybe well over a decade ago, and I've been kind of meh on it, thinking maybe okay, I'll probably try it at some point or the other, because it didn't quite seem like something that will quite work for me, even if it was, even though it did seem to have quite a few people who loved it. And then recently on the Bookish Drama Discord, Stacy and Fina from Fina Reads, they decided to reread this series, and I was like, okay, let me just jump in and see what I think of the first one. And it was surprising, like, I'm a bit surprised by how good, like how much I ended up enjoying this. So what is this book about? Essentially, it follows the story of Carrigan, who is she's this young she's a student, and after a conflict at her school, she leaves. She basically gets kicked out, and on the way home, she happens across a Green Rider who think of them as essentially the king's messenger service, where they also get into like almost like spycraft and these kind of things. But first and foremost is messenger service, and she finds one of them basically dying, and he begs her to carry a very important message that he's carrying to the king. But of course, the fact that he's dying, there's conflict there. So Carrigan accepts the charge, and she the entire story is primarily her trying to take this message to the queen, to the king, and dealing with the conflict that arises along the way, because there is very much a plot going on surrounding the monarchy in this story, and there are forces that are hell bent on seeing Carrigan fail to deliver this message. In addition to that, like, this is a world where the magic has been gone from it for quite some time, but dark forces are starting to stir again. Dark forces that are almost mythical in how given their place in society, and some of these forces are very much coming after Carrigan. So, what can I say about this? Like, this is very much classic fantasy. It very much has that classic fantasy vibe. So initially, you might think that it doesn't have too much to offer, but I was surprised. I was really surprised. Some of the things that didn't quite work about it for me is like early on we get very much that almost what I tend to think of as like almost like the Lord of the Rings vibes, where you get like almost every new facet of the world, we get like almost an info dump where we get like the history and the lore surrounding it and that kind of thing. Like, that happens early on for the first bit. It quickly peters off, and what we start seeing is that as much as this book is the typical feudal society within the typical pseudo-European feudal society, it is a book that decides to poke fun at that in a way that most classic fantasy books don't. Like, we have a very active group who are like, there's a whole subplot going on in the book where we follow the well, we don't quite follow them, but we have the presence of an anti-monarchist society that's beginning to drum up support among the masses. We have certain certain themes going on in here at different points, where like one of the things the book comes down hard on is deforestation, and the way that trade and exploitation and all these things come in, kind of drive that. So like there's some tidbits thrown in here that very much give this book almost as much as it has, like I said, as much as it has that classic fantasy feel, it also has a bit more of like a modern kind of injection here and there. But by far one of the coolest things is Carrigan's story herself. I won't get into details or how or why or like the way it happens, because it's very much spoiler territory. But I will say she very much goes against she very much bucks the trend of where the whole call to action, where the random farm boy, in this case random female student, gets the call to become this something greater than himself. She very much bucks that, because she comes from a very happy home as much as it has its own fair share of tragedy, and as it's not something she wants to give up. She's kind of already visualized a life that she wants to live, and she's not willing to give that up for this new potential path that's open in front of her. As much as she's agreed to do this one task for this dying person that she met. So like just that alone was really fun to read, because you do see how that element of her personality, it kind of interacts with the story throughout. As to the story itself, pretty much from the minute we Carrigan meets that messenger, it's very fast paced. It's just packed with a fair bit of action. Like, Carrigan never catches a break. Like, almost as soon as she manages to scrape her way out of one particular life-threatening situation, she almost immediately finds herself thrown into it. Like, this is not a story where the MC is just, she picks up a sword and she's suddenly like a legend and these kind of things. Like, she's very much in over her head. She's very much inexperienced. She's very much ill-equipped to deal with the tasks that she's given, mainly because of the forces that are arrayed against her. And that's something that's very consistent throughout this book. Like, she's consistently in over her head. She's consistently in situations that she struggles to make her way out of. She does have some initial assistance of the magical variant that kind of plays a part in throughout the story. That it does almost add like a tinge of Deus Ex Machina to the story, but as the story unfolds, you find out that there's a bit more going on here than what you know. It's not quite as Deus Ex Machina as it initially seems. So because of that, like, it was pretty engaging, and as far as the characters go, like, they're pretty tropey, which is not a bad thing, by the way. Like, tropes are a thing, like, because they work in these, especially in these classic fantasy stories, and like, they work for this story. They pretty much, they added exactly the elements you need added to the story, and they may not necessarily break new walls, but they did amplify the engagement and the enjoyment of the story, given how well it's written and how engaging and fast-paced it was. Like, I actually we're going to be going through this entire series one book a month, and after I made it past the initial part, I actually slowed down how I was reading this book, because I wanted to stretch it out over the month. That way I wouldn't have to wait too long before I could dive into the second book. And that tells me all I need to know about how much I was actually enjoying this book. Despite the fact that it's very much classic fantasy and didn't initially seem like something I would care about too much. So all in all, it's just a fun classic fantasy ride. And that, I'm told, just gets better and better, especially with the next two books in the series, I think. I'm kind of happy that I'm experiencing the series as a buddy read, because we do have a few people in the Bookish Drum and Discord who are going through it. I think I'll just tag their channels here. We have Stacy from Chapter Conundrum, we have Fina from Fina Reads, we have Ian the Reader. There's a few other people. I don't know if they have channels or not. If they do, and you happen to watch this video, just drop a comment and I'll tag you, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Green Rider. A fun intro to what, based on the scenes that I saw here, is probably going to be a very fun series. And I'm along for this ride. What else can I say? If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.